Traptrix has been receiving a bit of a mixed reception, and I wanted to see what was going on. Now, this deck was a little bit pricey to invest into. I wouldn't recommend it to a newer player unless you really wanted to play it. But now that we've got it, I was actually somewhat impressed by this deck. I definitely think it's deserving of its middling reviews. It's not the most broken deck in the world. It's not the most consistent. It does feel just like a weaker version of Lab. So if you really want to build a trap deck, go build Lab. It feels better. But this is definitely very unique in how it sort of feels and works, and I'm pretty happy with it. Honestly, how it turned out, I think this list is pretty decent. I'm not going to pretend to be a Traptrix expert. There are certain parts of the deck I'm still trying to sort of figure out, like the field spell. Like, I don't understand what's so good about the field spell, but it's easily searchable, so why not play it? But yeah, here's the list. We've got a few games lined up. We've got 4 replays. We're going to be doing a deck profile at the end to explain sort of the thought process and putting a lot of the cards in here, is going through it card for card, so you're fully aware of everything that we're doing here in this deck. So if you're interested in that style of content, absolutely subscribe, because that's what we do here, basically. We break these decks down, go into them in depth to try and analyze them. So if that's something you're interested in, by all means, big red button down there. It takes 2 seconds to hit it, doesn't cost you anything, and I really would appreciate it, as well as a wee thumbs up, you know? A like always helps, more visibility out there if you enjoy what you're watching, and every little bit of support adds up. I would really appreciate it. Without any further ado, let's get into the games. Alrighty, getting into game 1 here, we've got an interesting hand. Our opponent doesn't really play an awful lot here, which we're a little bit worried about, but at least it gives us a chance to show the deck off a little. We're going to start by normal summoning Myrmilio. Myrmilio searches your deck for a Traptrix card. They got Max C, that's why they were happy enough holding off on playing much, so we're going to just chain to that our monster here. This summons itself out from the hand to the field. Now we're going to exceed into Pinguiliga, or whatever this card's name is. Now, the reason we're happy enough to give them this draw one off this is because if he's playing something like Tearelaments, this card is absolutely massive in terms of impact. So we're going to detach one, we're going to grab another copy of this card directly from the deck, we're going to set 4, and we're going to pass. They're going to go Numeron Wall here. Numeron Wall is going to play the Numeron Network directly from the deck. Now, I wanted to show this because I hate Numerons, and this is a good example of how to beat them. We're going to go Magical Malak, going to shuffle back a bunch of cards here, going to fast forward through this. That's fine, draw 3, gonna go Numeron Network, gonna send Calling, and summon out 1, 2, 3, and 4, and bang. Face down. This is when and includes all monsters summoned, so now they're gonna tribute summon for the driver. They're actually gonna crash the driver into our monster, which is very interesting. Now they're gonna go set 1 and go end phase. But again, look at our hand. We can just set up the exact same plays that we went to do last turn. We're gonna normal Myrmilio, they're gonna flip up Call by the Grave. Now that's gonna banish the one in our graveyard, actually preventing us from activating our effect, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because at the end of the day, we have all the face down cards that we need. We're going to link it off into a Sura. Going to activate the effect of the face down Traptrix Holy Tua. That triggers Sura. Sura summons Dionia. Dionia sets the floodgate face down. Sura's going to activate, placing Terrifying Trap Hole face down, and there you go. You can just see trap, 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 trap. Bang, bang, bang. Advantage builds up. You exceed summon, you set cards, you search cards, you mill cards, and it's just, you scale advantage in a very similar fashion to Labyrinth, right? Where the deck feels weakest at the very beginning, and if you don't stop it right away, it very quickly scales out of control. That's how the deck feels. But it's a little bit easier to stop this than it is to stop Labyrinth. That's the main difference. But again, it is very similar in how it feels in terms of once you kick that ball, if your opponent doesn't stop it, that's just going to keep rolling, and it's going to gather too much steam for them to stop. Let's get into game 2. Already getting into game 2 here. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to start with Myrmilio. Myrmilio going to search our deck, but there is a halfness. Now, we decided we're going to go for the Ash Blossom here, purely because, again, like I said, this deck sort of feels like it struggles out the gate, but after it gets a few sort of yards behind it, it starts really popping off. So we're going to grab this Holotua, whatever it is. We're going to go into Sura here. We're going to activate Prosperity. All we're digging for is any trap hole card. That's all we want. There's one right there. There's a second. So all we're looking for is a trap hole. We decided to grab Bottomless here because I just like Bottomless Trap Hole. Going to discard it off of Holotua. We're going to summon this now to the field, triggering Sura. Sura summons Dionia. That resets the Bottomless Trap Hole that we just set. That's going to trigger this to grab Gravedigger's Trap Hole from the deck before going into our Exceed monster yet again. And there you go. Suddenly, we've got a few interruptions, and we've even got another special summon in our hand alongside an Imperm. Now that is pretty good. Now, we're going to pass into our opponent's turn here. Of course, we know we're playing against Tearelaments, which is why we went into this monster in particular. This monster is amazing against Tearelaments. They're going to go Max C in response to our cards here. A little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. We're going to go Grave Diggers to stop that Max C from resolving. Ideally, we are going to summon a few times, and I don't think stopping one fusion effect off of Grave Diggers is that important, so I feel like stopping the Maxi at the very least is more important. We're going to pop the spell card here. That's going to trigger Sarah, because Sarah's going to summon again. The monster in her hand is going to summon again. They are, however, going to get rid of our Bottomless. The lucky bastard opened up Heartbeat. Heartbeat, of course, dropping the Agedo to summon, to return the Bottomless back into our deck. We are, however, going to grab a copy of Pudicia from our deck. Pudica, whatever. Pudica on special summon from the deck is going to target a special summon monster our opponent controls and banish it. We are, of course, going to use Pingulia as well. I'm mispronouncing these names. I don't care. If you're a botanist, correct me in the comments. We're going to activate just as many links in this chain as our opponent is. We're going to set the Nightmare from the deck. We're going to use Pudicia. We're going to banish his Havness. Pingulia is going to steal Havness from his graveyard, which means no fusion summon. Stealing an Amber unaffected by Aqua effects for the rest of this turn. He is going to mill 5 off the Agedo. He does end up milling a Rhino-Heart, which he summons by dropping the Meta Noise. Rhino-Heart, of course, get milling. Meta Noise, of course, will get recycling. So, still looking a little bit rough, but we're just going to have to make do. We'll just have to wait and see. Rhino-Heart's going to mill Siren here. Siren's going to fuse back. We're going to chain to that our Arachnochamp, or whatever this thing is. Arachnocampa. Arachnocamp, whatever. We're going to summon it out to the field. That just protects our face downs a little bit. We're going to go kick Kalos. Kalos getting hit by the Infinite Impermanence is going to make their turn a little bit more difficult. So now that is negated. They're going to normal summon Diviner. Apparently they just have Diviner. They haven't even normal summoned yet. They're going to go for Kelbeck. Kelbeck's going to mill them early, and just like that, as if it didn't even matter, they're going to keep on playing the game. Tearelaments Crime's going to grab back the Banish Havness from before. Now they're going to use the Merly. Merly going to fusion summon back to summon out Garura. Now, why did they summon Garura and not Rulkalos? Their plan was to go into Dark. So if they go into Garura, first of all, Garura can, of course, draw a card when sent to the graveyard. They're going to swing in to destroy their own Dark. Dark then searches their deck for Siren. Very interesting strategy from our opponent there. I'm not entirely sure what they were going for. Or why they wouldn't just go directly into Rulkalos, or if there was some sort of issue. But, I mean, they chose to do this play instead, to go for the Siren. Siren dropping Rhino-Heart, going to mill a bunch of cards. They're going to go for Sulliek here. Sulliek searching their deck for Merly. And then they're going to pass. Very interesting turn from our opponent. I don't know exactly what it is they were planning, but they sure were planning. They get to summon out Rhino-Heart. We do have an Ash Blossom for the Rhino-Heart. I'm hoping that just puts their turn to rest, to be perfectly honest. But we know they have a Havness, so we do need to be careful. Okay, we're going to switch all our monsters to attack mode. Pinguliga is going to activate its effect, dropping Dionia. We're going to grab Havness is going to activate its effect in the hand. We're going to mill 3, summon itself. That's fine. They mill Merly, Medora, and Scream, which is very unfortunate for us. Zora activates its effect. Pinguliga activates its effect. Merly, however, Pin activating her effect on your turn actually puts you at a disadvantage compared to your opponent's turn, because they get to resolve their tier cards first in the chain because they choose second. But we do get to steal his Medora. That's still something. We get to set the Trap Hole Nightmare to the graveyard. They're going to use that to shuffle our Fusion, our Exceed monster back into our deck. We're going to go into the brand new Atiopus, whatever its name is. I can't pronounce these names. Atiopus, basically the reason we go into this is it boosts our whole field up by 1,000. It also has some other neat effects, but we're primarily using it for its attack boost, ironically. We're going to special summon a monster out, going into our ping yet again. 3,500 beaters, swinging in at the Medora, at the Kaleido Heart. His plan here is to bounce all of my traps back into my deck. The reason being, the Link monster only provides her attack boost if there's a normal trap in my grave. I had 4, he's bouncing 4 back into my deck. So that would be a problem, except we've got one on face down. I'm just going to activate this one and keep my attack boost. Gonna go for Nightmare. Nightmare's gonna pop the Kaleido Heart and then banish it before it can use its effect. Keldo gets shuffling, that's whatever. We go back up to 35, take out the Rhino Heart, swing into the Siren, go directly for 25, and then we get the pass turn to our opponent here. We still have a face down trap card, and we have some interruptions on our field. It's not gonna be an easy one for our opponent to break. They're going to go for Heartbeat here. Heartbeat summoning Havness, sending Havness. He activates the Havness in the graveyard. We activate our ping, of course. We're just going to yoink that directly from his graveyard. No fusion summoning for you today, good sir. give me your card. Gonna normal summon the Merly. Merly get Millen. I don't believe he mills Heartbeat to return Suliak to hand, but I don't think he mills anything else of any value. Sets the Suliak face down. We know that's what it is. Into draw phase, standby phase. Goes for Suliak during the standby phase. Gonna send that to the graveyard. He knows exactly what's gonna happen next, right? So he decides to scoop it up. Basically, he activates Merly, then we can use Ping to yoink his card. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. He can't really do anything about any of what was happening there. And there you go. That was the Tearelaments matchup. Now, he did make a bit of an interesting play there towards the middle. I don't want to say a misplay, because I don't know what his plan was. I think in his head he knew, though, because he seemed to have a way to go into the Collider Heart really easily on the following turn. He was probably expecting the Rhino Heart that he was summoning to resolve, but luckily we had the Ash Blossom for that. So he went for a bit of a risky play. It did kind of pay off for him. It probably didn't pay off as heavily as he was expecting, though, which might be why we were able to turn that game around. But either way, it was a great game. Let's get into game 3. Alright, game number 3 here, and this hand, as you can probably see, isn't exactly the greatest. We're playing against Sword Souls. Now, Sword Soul, for as powerful as it is not a deck I see an awful lot of, and we might need to, shake that up a little bit. I mean, we're playing on Mount Sword Soul. They're going to do the standard normal summon Mo Yi combo, where they're going to go in the Grandmaster here, get search a card, draw a card, which is pretty dope for our opponent. Looking at our hand, it's not the greatest hand in the world, let's be real, and that's the thing about Traptrix. There's a lot of situations where you're going to be left looking at a hand and thinking, yeah, not the greatest. And that is only exacerbated by the fact that we're going second. Going second, this hand is damn near inoperable. So we draw Max C for turn. Good for us. Best card in the game. We're going to go evenly matched in the battle phase. Of course, we're on the floor is going to negate that. We knew that was going to happen. We're going to have to really try to pull something out here. And I don't believe we even have the capability of doing it. And there you go. Yeah, we decided to just scoop it up. I didn't want to go full video without showing off at least one game like that, because it's not just one. You will come across games like that. I'm not trying. You will brick, and this deck more than Lab tends to brick more than Lab does, because there's just some cards that you want to play one or even multiple copies of in the deck. They just don't do anything by themselves. And there's going to be certain hands where maybe you don't have enough trap cards, or you go second or whatever. This is just one example of the stars being aligned against you, and they're going to align, and it's going to be more than a few times. So trust me, I just wanted to throw in at least one where we just completely break, because I'm not trying to falsely sell you a deck and how good it is, right? This will happen. Let's get into game 4. Already getting into game 4 here. We have a slightly better hand than last time. Let's go Myrmilio here, normal summon, grabbing the trap card. This is typically how you want to start your combos for the most part. If I'm wrong on this, correct me. I'm not a Traptrix master. I recently picked it up. We're going to go Myrmilio to search for this. The reason you grab this card is that by discarding a trap hole, you can immediately activate it on the turn you set it, which enables some plays with your Sara. So that's my understanding of the Traptrix combos. If someone in the comments wants to correct me and show me a better way of playing it, by all means, but so far this is the best way that I've found to play it. We're going to go for the trap card, Holitea, summoning it out. That's going to trigger off the Sara to summon the Dionea. Dionea sets the trap hole that you send to the graveyard. Sara then is going to activate another trap directly from the deck, going into this. This is a very consistent combo. We're going Pinguliga, going to detach a material, grab a special summon. We can activate this card, summon it right away, setting a card and passing our turn. Now, there's a bunch of other link monsters you could consider summoning. I just never personally see the value in playing these guys over the likes of just keeping Sara on board. Sara just seems really good, although these guys are also, this one in particular is also fantastic. So there's maybe some changes to happen there. Maybe I'm playing it slightly wrong in that regard, but it doesn't feel like there's a massive competitive difference between Sara and the Camellia. Whatever it is, bang, just can't play through it. Sometimes it's just as easy as that, and I wanted to show this off as the flip side to the previous game. Sometimes you're just going to have nothing. Sometimes your opponent's just not going to be able to out your board. What is our board? Our board is a lot of recursion. First of all, the Sara gives you a ton of recursive power. You've got the Graveyard Disruption, and you've got 3 face downs. At least 2 of which your opponent knows, which can be an advantage and can be a disadvantage. Of course, your opponent having information is inherently bad, right? But if your opponent knows what's face down, they very often trick themselves into making bad plays to play around your face downs. And when your face downs encompass such a wider range of plays, it doesn't matter what they do. They know it's there, so they have to play around it, and they're going to make mistakes. They're going to play suboptimally in order to bait you or trick you or do whatever to get you to use it at the wrong time. So as long as you're smart and sit on your traps and use them at just the right time, you're going to crush your opponents every single time. Let's get into the deck profile. Now, with a deck like this, you're naturally going to be fending yourself off a lot of surrenders. That's why the games maybe weren't as good as I would like them to have been, because normally the way it works with this deck is either A, you are going to do your turn 1 play and set up your cards and be nice and prepared, and your opponent's immediately going to surrender because they don't want to play against Traptrix, or 2, you're going to break and you're going to surrender. But everything in the middle is a lot of fun. So let's talk about that. First of all, with the deck, let's talk about flex spots. So of course we got Maxi, flex spot, Ash Blossom, Cult by the Grave, Crossout Designator. All of those are absolutely flex spots. And then past that, everything else is kind of your decision. You of course have Evenly Matched and Infinite Impermanence, right, which are technically flex spots. However, they're both so good in the deck that it's hard to pass them up. But absolutely, you can get rid of Evenly Matched, you can get rid of Imperm, you don't need them. And if you're looking for a more budget-friendly version of the deck, dropping the Imperms and the Maxis and all of that, blah blah blah, actually removes every UR from the main deck. Suddenly it doesn't look that bad. Now your extra deck's pricey as all hell, right? But it means that it's taking some of the pressure off your wallet for your main deck. So you can play whatever you want in terms of flex cards. This is my selection here. You can do with that as you will. Let's get into the actual Traptrix monsters now. We've got Myrmilio and Mantis are your two primary normal... Sorry, yes, they're your two primary normal summons. Mantis on summon searches a Traptrix monster. Myrmilio on normal summon searches a hole trap card, a trap hole. The Myrmilio, when special summoned, will target a spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it. Mantis can, once per turn, as a quick effect, target a set spell or trap you control, return it to the hand, and then set a different spell or trap from your hand. Well, it can also be the same one, right? But normally it's different. That secondary effect is primarily to like dance around disruption and things. You don't use it very often, but it is kind of neat. Primarily just the other one though. So this card's primarily for its normal summon, search a monster. Myrmilio, search a trap hole. You can also pop a card with special summoned. We got Dianea. When normal summon, you'll target a Traptrix in the grave and special summon it. When it's special summon, you will target a trap hole in your grave and set it. So again, just graveyard recursion. This one's more useful for its secondary effect, the searching for the hole when special summoned, because normally the way you'll work this card is you're going to summon it turn 1 off of Sura after resolving Traptrix Holy Tua. And you saw that combo in the gameplay a few times. So again, if you watch the gameplay, you're going to know how that works. We've got Pudica, whatever. Gets each following effect once per turn. When normal summon, you can grab Traptrix Garden from deck to hand, or if it's special summon, target a special summon monster your opponent controls and banish it, but during the next standby phase, they get to special summon a banished monster. So be careful with that effect. It is good, of course, to spot remove one of your opponent's monsters, especially quick play, summoning it during your opponent's turn off of Sura. However, they do get to special summon something back. So just remember that. Just be careful. We've got the Arachnocamp. So the Arachnocamp basically is just a free special summon to the field so long as you control a Traptrix. It also, the first time each of your set spells and traps will be destroyed, it's not. So a little bit of protection, but it's primarily here as an extender to help go into your rank 4s. Now, in terms of ratios, of course, you want as many normal summons as you can get. I see that this card is between 1 and 3. Many people are all over the place on this. I play it at 2 because I do like its special summon from deck off of Sura. I don't see a ton of value in the field spell. I could be wrong for that, but I just don't really like the field spell that much. So, but again, I never like bricked on it, I never drew it, so I didn't take it out, but I don't really like the field spell too much. I would consider cutting this card to 1, but I understand if you want to use the field spell more, you can play it at 3. And if there's some sort of hidden use to the field spell that I'm not seeing, let me know in the comments. Of course, I would like to learn more about the deck, but thus far, I haven't really seen any value in it. We've got Parallel Exceed. Parallel Exceed is pretty damn awesome because you can summon it basically right after going into Sura, because you just summon it to the zone right underneath her. It gives you an instant rank 4 on top of everything else. That is absolutely amazing, considering you can go into the likes of Rafflesia, which we'll talk about in a moment, but Parallel Exceed, if you open up with this card, is a massive boon to your end board, 100%. Pot of Prosperity, get digging for cards. This card's pretty awesome in this deck. I would definitely put it down as core, for sure. I actually have an extra copy. Bam. We've got the Field Spell. So the Field Spell, it gives you an additional normal summon of a Traptrix monster, right? So that's good value. If you have this in hand and you have another like big normal summon, abso-freaking-lutely. It suddenly becomes valuable, and I get it, right? Its secondary effect I'm not the biggest on. Well, sorry, this effect is fine as well. The first time each insect or plant monster will be destroyed by battle, it's not destroyed, so the battle protection is nice to protect your Sura. Again, it doesn't come up every game, but it's neat. You can banish a monster you control to special summon a Traptrix monster from your hand or graveyard. The only reason, like, this card is phenomenal on like turn 3. But I find a lot of the time whenever I'm playing Traptrix, I don't have enough resources at my disposal right off the bat to actually make effective use of this card. Like, it's special summon from grave or hand seems good, but you have to banish a monster on your field to do it, and normally the deck doesn't just willy-nilly summon monsters. Every monster you summon has a purpose and is useful for something, so it's not as if you're exactly lacking for space. And normally, if you've got a monster in your hand or graveyard, you've either A, not got a use for it, or B, you've already used it. So I just don't see a ton of value there. But the extra normal summon, absolutely, there's value in that. If you've got this in your hand and no other normal summon, or even this in hand and another normal summon, it means you can get an extra level 4 out very easily, so absolutely, I see value there. The battle protection is also kind of nice. I just wouldn't break my back for it, right? I just wouldn't go too far out of my way to enable the garden summon, but it is entirely up to you. You want to run 3 of this card to enable your garden, go nuts. Then we've got our Trap Holes. Bottomless Trap Hole. Destroy a monster your opponent special summons with 1500 or more attack and banish it. Pretty good against tier. We've got Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. When a monster special summon this turn uses its effect, negate the effect and destroy it. You've got Floodgate Trap Hole, which is arguably one of the better ones. I actually really like this card. When your opponent special summons a monster, permanently flip it face down, which is awesome. Gravediggers is pretty great as well. When a monster in your opponent's hand or graveyard or banish pile activates its effect, negate it and do 2000 damage. Terrifying Trap Hole Nightmare. If your opponent has a special summon monster, if your opponent has special summoned a monster this turn, target a monster your opponent controls with 2000 or more attack, destroy it. Then if you have a whole normal trap card in your grave, you can banish one monster from your opponent's graveyard. So it's a little bit convoluted in how it's written sometimes, but this is a pretty awesome card. So it is. You basically just pop an opponent's monster and then banish it from the grave. Pretty good against the likes of Tearelaments. So yeah, this card's awesome. And lastly, we have 3 copies of Traptrix Holutia. I don't know how to pronounce half these names, man. But basically, you can activate this card to turn it set by discarding a normal trap, which is awesome, especially if you discard a trap hole. It doesn't have to be a trap hole, but you get a lot more value if it is. We'll talk about that in a moment. But you can activate it to turn it set, and this basically just, when activated, special summons itself as a monster, level 4, 2400 defense, which just extends your Exceed plays. You can then banish this card from your graveyard to target a Traptrix in your grave to special summon it, but you can only use 1 effect per turn. So this card overall is really, really good. Again, it's one of the primary extenders off of your plays. You're going to be using it a lot alongside the likes of your Sura, off of your Murmillo normal summon. Murmillo is definitely the best normal summon in the deck because it enables this play in particular. But yeah, again, it's just pretty awesome. Getting into the extra deck is fairly straightforward. We've got Abyss Dweller, of course. Just activate its effect, quick play, turn off the graveyard for a turn. Pretty awesome. Rafflesia. Now, so the difference between the main deck and extra deck Traptrix is the main deck Traptrix are unaffected by whole normal traps, which only really comes up in the mirror match, or if you've got like a big Floodgate one, but none of yours would impact your cards anyways. So that little immunity is sort of meaningless. However, the Exceed monsters are unaffected by trap effects, which means crime, which means Celiac, which means Imperm, which means all of these other cards that now suddenly it's immune to, and that is a big deal. We have Rafflesia, of course. Rafflesia, as Traptrix monster you control except this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, so it's total sort of floodgate protection, which is pretty awesome in and of itself. Your opponent cannot target Traptrix monsters you control except this card with card effects, so it protects all your other Traptrix. Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach a material to send a whole, like a trap hole card from your deck to the graveyard who has met its activation conditions to apply that card's effect. So basically this card becomes any of your trap holes, which is insane, right? Because it's so much flexibility. I don't use this card as much as I probably should. This card is really, really good, and I don't use it nearly enough. I think this card is awesome. It always really has been. This has been the heart and soul of Traptrix for a long time. Tornado Dragon, quick effect, pop up back row. Baguska, Floodgate, switch everything to defense, negate all their effects. Pretty straightforward stuff. We've all seen these cards. Alomerus. So Alomerus can use one of the following effects per turn. Each of the following effects per turn, once per turn. You can either detach 2 materials to special summon a level 4 insect or plant monster from your graveyard. Neat, but not like overly so. Its second effect, if an opponent's monster leaves the field because of your card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, you can detach 1 material from this card to target one of those cards and special summon it to your field. Pretty neat. Again, none of these effects are game breaking. I definitely think this card should be an SR as opposed to UR. But yeah, it's pretty solid. I've yet to use it. I don't think it's particularly amazing, if I'm being perfectly honest. But it's fine. It's definitely a fallback option. If you didn't want to craft this card, if you wanted to like save some crafting points when you're building this deck, you can drop this card. It's not that great. Then we've got this one, whose name I pronounce differently every time I look at it. While this card is material, it's unaffected by traps and the activated effects of other monsters with the same type as this card's material. And that is important because once per turn, if a card is sent to your opponent's graveyard or banished by a card effect, you can attach one of those monsters onto this card as material. Now, the reason that's so good is, number one, it gives you immunity to monster effects of that monster's attribute, allowing you to spread this circle of immunity, but also because you're able to disrupt the likes of Tearelaments, to disrupt a whole bunch of decks that rely upon their graveyard. Tearelaments is just the biggest one that springs to mind because we kept winning those matches against Tearelaments because of this card. It also has an activated effect during your turn. You can detach a material to grab a Traptrix monster from deck to hand, so it's an extender as well as an interruption. What more do you want? This card's incredible. We played 2 of it. I have played 2 of it in certain matches. I think 2 of this card is ideal. You can play with 1 if you really need to. You can play with 1, but I think 2 of this card is fire. Zeus, because it's Zeus. Sura. A lot of people play 2 Sura. It's fine. In a lot of my testing, I haven't needed more than 2. Most games, you don't even really go into more than 1, to be honest, because you either win right away or you lose right away. Sometimes you need a second. I've yet to need a third. So again, if you're looking to save some materials, you can play 2. But I have 3, so I played 3. I think 3 is probably better, to be honest. But yeah, this card is one of your primary engine cards. Yet again, unaffected by trap cards. It has 2 effects. You can use each once per turn, and normally they chain into one another. If a normal trap is activated, special summon a Traptrix monster from your deck with a different name than that with anything you control. Or if a Traptrix monster activates its effect, you get to set a trap hole directly from your deck. So usually one will link directly into the other. Like you'll activate a trap card like this. That will trigger off its effect to summon a Traptrix from deck, and then Traptrix you summon will activate its effect, and then that monster will trigger off your Sura to set another trap hole directly from the deck. So you end up with some extra monsters, some extra back row, and all is well. Sura is dope, and it's a link 1, which is broken. I use just to summon an Earth from the opponent's graveyard. Again, we had spare room. This card can be whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. On destruction, it searches your deck for an Earth monster with 1500 defense or less, which is basically your entire deck. So that's kind of neat, but it's definitely not a big deal. Cularia. I think this card's really good. Again, it's one of those cards that I just don't use often enough because I don't often open up the resources of the gas to go in that far. But this card's really good. Every time you activate a whole normal trap for the first time, you can set it instead of sending it to the graveyard. And that by itself is insane, because you can just continually then use the same trap holes. Obviously not within the same turn because it's reset, which activates the set timer, but it means that once per turn you can use each of them instead of them being sent to the graveyard. And during your end phase, it revives a Traptrix monster from your graveyard in defense. Now, if it didn't have that in defense restriction, this card would be a million times better. The main reason I don't use this card is because it's normally a toss-up between, do I summon her or do I keep Sarah? And I normally look at Sarah and think, you know what, the value here is probably better. The reason being, I want to be able to summon a Myrmilio during my opponent's turn in case they're playing like a back row deck like Labyrinth or something right now, which is pretty popular. Or I want to summon a Pudika to banish one of their monsters. I just value that more than this card. And if this card wasn't limited by that in defense and could summon back the Sarah, it would be so much better. So much better. But alas, that's the way the card was designed. If there is something I'm missing here and some sort of like combo or play or something that I'm getting wrong, absolutely tell me. I would love to learn more about Traptrix. It is definitely decent, but I feel like there may be something that I'm missing. So if you know it, point it out. Again, don't be afraid to be blunt. Don't be rude, but you can be blunt. If you're rude, I'm going to remove your comment, but you can be blunt. We've got the new Link 3. This is your boss monster. Kind of. It provides a bunch of extra attack points to your board, which is legitimately the most value I found out of this card. I think its second effect is neat, but it doesn't nearly justify the cost for this card. So while it's face up, as long as you have a normal trap engrave, everything gets boosted by 1,000. I think it could have been higher than that. I think this could have been 1,500 boost, or this card itself should have been stronger at maybe 2,500 base. It being 1,800 attack and only granting 1,000 attack brings us up to 28. So you still need to summon another boss monster to get any real mileage out of that 1,000 attack points, because 28 is big, but it's not that big, right? It's not getting over a Grapha. It's not getting over Lady. So what's even the point, right? So definitely a little bit of oversight on Konami's part there. I definitely think this card isn't nearly strong enough. You can get away with not playing this. If you don't have it, and you don't have, again, like I said, the crafting materials, you can cut this. It's really not that great of a card. It comes up once a blue moon. It really only comes up whenever I'm looking to break a board, if I'm being honest, and even then it's still rare. And it's another effect where you can target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of insects or plants you control and negate their effects. Then you can banish a normal trap from your graveyard to destroy one of those targeted cards, which, you know, is a kind of neat Dark Ruler-esque effect. But like I said, you've dedicated this deck doesn't spam monsters out like other decks. Like a Link 3 is a big commitment for this deck. So being able to do that means you're going to negate 1, 2, maybe 3 monsters if you've been a good boy this year. And then you get to pop one of them, and then what? You know what I mean? So it's neat, it's definitely cool, and if you have it, play it at 1. But if you don't have it, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. Really and truly. Like this one and this one are both very, very cuttable if you're lacking the resources. And lastly, we've got Goddess, because Goddess, right? White Lady Jumpscare. And there you go, that's the full deck. Let me throw up all of our tech options as well. Evil Eye coming up soon, keep an eye for that. Yeah, here it is. Here's the full deck list. I had a lot of fun playing this. I will continue to play it going forward. I actually think this deck is a little bit better than people are giving it credit for, but I fully understand the fact that it feels just like a weaker version of Lab, and I get that, right? 100%, and that's what it is. So if you're looking for the most competitive trap-based strategy, this is not it, Chief. Keep walking, keep looking. But if you're looking to have a little bit of fun, or maybe you're just tired of seeing Lab and you want to play something new, well, this is the deck for you. If you have any suggestions, questions, or anything else, you can either hop into the Discord in the link below, or you can leave them in the comments, and I will try to get around to everybody who does. There you go. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you haven't. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.